Remember back in the days when the basic judgment of a good phone was its screen? And usually when you ask someone about that phone, they would say, "Is that a Samsung phone?" Because Samsung phones used to, and still are today, have the best looking mobile displays. And the big reason for that is the AMOLED panel, because it has a punchier, brighter, and better contrast ratio than a typical LCD. Well, this Redmi Note 10 that starts at $8,490 is the cheap Samsung phone of the modern world. Usually you have to spend more on an AMOLED phone, but today you can get it for 9,990 pesos that already comes with 6GB RAM and 128GB storage. And it's fast storage as well, thanks to UFS 2.2. You can further expand that through the dedicated microSD slot, a feature that's slowly disappearing today, and overall the Redmi Note 10 is something you would expect from Samsung if they ever release an affordable AMOLED phone like Xiaomi. Right off the bat, this 6.43-inch Super AMOLED 1080p display is capable of up to 1100 nits max, meaning it can get plenty bright, almost as bright as other high-end phones. Though you have to put the brightness slider around 90 to 100% to get that high brightness effect. When it comes to colors and brightness, this one can go toe-to-toe with other AMOLED phones that come with higher price tags. It's also sharp in quality, but for some reason it can only play back standard definition on Netflix, which is a bit of a bummer, but it's a cheap phone, so sure, whatever. However, I did notice that the recommended color scheme in the settings is a lot cooler than other AMOLED devices. It's almost as if Xiaomi calibrated it to look like an LCD with bright and cool whites. Again, not a deal breaker, but it's worth noting. Provided AMOLED is more expensive to implement than LCD, Xiaomi had to decide between sticking with 60Hz on this phone instead of a high refresh panel. To be honest, I really don't mind 60Hz at this price point, given that it's not made for gaming. On top of that, you get to save more battery. Overall, this is probably the best quality display you can get for a cheap phone. But what about the design? Did Xiaomi cut a few corners in the design department to make way for a better panel? Well, I'm glad to report that they did not. This all-plastic build feels solid in the hand and even comes with a bit of heft to it that adds to the overall feel of the device. Xiaomi even added an IP53 rating to make it dust and water splash resistant. And the overall size of this phone, especially with that 6.43-inch Gorilla Glass 3 protected display, makes the Redmi Note 10 one-hand friendly, which is a refreshing welcome if you're coming from bigger phones. By the way, this is the green variant that actually uses a glossy finish despite looking matte in pictures. Sometimes when met with strong outdoor lighting, the color shifts towards blue, and in opposite lighting conditions, the color shifts toward really green. And if you notice the camera module shifts toward blue off-axis, I thought it's something interesting to point out. There's no notification LED light here, which is something I'm seeing less and less on smartphones, but you do have an always-on display because the phone is using AMOLED. The package around this phone is typical of Xiaomi. There's a fast and accurate fingerprint scanner on the side together with a volume rocker, an IR blaster up top together with a speaker grill for that stereo experience, and a headphone jack at the bottom. By far, this is the least effective stereo speaker phone that I've tested from Xiaomi, but it's clearly better than a south-firing speaker in terms of overall quality. I just wish it was a little louder. There's also AAC support when connecting Bluetooth speakers, so if you have wireless earbuds or a soundbar with the same codec support, you can also expect a better sounding music quality. The only thing that I don't like about a speaker is that the back vibrates strongly when playing anything relating to bass-heavy output. It kinda reminds me of the X3 NFC's problem, and unfortunately that's the same case here. Believe me when I say that it's not an immersive feature of the phone, it basically makes my hands numb after quite a while. So far, so good. What about the cameras then? Unlike other smartphones, the Redmi Note 10 is actually sporting 4 cameras in the back and a 13-megapixel selfie camera. The back is headlined by a 48-megapixel, along an 8-megapixel ultra-wide, and a pair of 2-megapixel lenses for macro and depth purposes. As far as the main camera goes, this phone can take solid photos if you give it plenty of light. The same applies to the dynamic range, which is pretty impressive at this price point. I did see some off-white balance when capturing close-up subjects, but if you move a few inches away, it kinda fixes the inconsistency. Take note that night mode only works on the 48 megapixel sensor, not the ultra-wide and selfie. But according to my tests, night mode on this one needs a ton of work. It does make the scene brighter, but doesn't preserve the details, so we end up with blurry and smudgy photos. You're basically better off with normal mode when shooting at night. For a phone powered by Snapdragon 678, which is a chipset made with efficiency in mind, the Redmi Note 10 is one of the few cheap phones that lets you record up to 4K 30, at least for the main camera. It's worth noting that you'll get better video stability with lower resolutions, but if you have a gimbal lying around, you can create impressive video quality with this. There's only one thing that really irritated me though. Sometimes, the video would stutter during recording, making it almost unusable. I'm hoping this gets fixed through a software update, Xiaomi. And one more thing, there's a strong rolling shutter effect when recording a video with a selfie camera. You gotta watch out for that as well. In case you didn't know, I've been testing the base model of the Redmi Note 10, which features 4GB RAM and 64GB storage. Right off the bat, you'll find the micro SD slot useful if you install a lot of games and capture a lot of photos. The system already occupies over 15GB out of the box, leaving you with roughly 50GB to work around. In 2021, that isn't simply enough for the average user. But for the 4GB RAM, Xiaomi did an admirable job in efficiently managing limited resources, at least when not running intensive apps. Day-to-day performance is not too slow nor too fast, it's right in the middle where the phone is responsive to actions from the user. I did find MIUI's launcher and its gestures a bit off and stuttery, so I decided to stick with a third-party launcher and virtual buttons for navigation. I'm currently on MIUI 12.0.10 Global Stable version, and I can still see some bugs that need fixing, specifically when playing videos on YouTube. For example, when you manually switch orientation when watching a video, the moment you go back to use your phone normally, the nav buttons disappear. Picture-in-picture mode also slows down the entire UI at times, which is a consistent, occurring issue that I've seen from other Xiaomi phones as well. But one thing that I can stand is the late arrival of Messenger notifications, even when I turned off battery restrictions. This could be a serious concern for anyone looking to make this device a work phone. While the Redmi Note 10 isn't made for gaming, the chipset can handle games like Mobile Legends and Wild Rift without a hitch. Now, because of limited RAM, you may need to wait a couple of seconds after closing a game before the system reallocates the resources that prevent the phone from stuttering. And for the same reason, RAM-intensive games like COD and PUBG will stutter from time to time. So enough about the performance. What about that 5000 mAh battery? Well, it's good enough, but not great. Considering that the phone has an underpowered chipset and a 60Hz AMOLED display, you would expect that the battery life on this one would be bonkers. Based on my usage, which involves a lot of video streaming, I can rarely hit 6 hours of screen time. There's no idle battery drain that could have affected my screen time. I feel like I should be getting more, but it can still last a day if you're a bit conservative with the battery. And one more thing, the 33 watts charger is kinda slow for a 33 watt charger. The phone took an hour and a half to go from empty to full, and with that speed, I usually see other phones stopping up in just a little over an hour. I think it's clear that Xiaomi made this phone for users to enjoy a better display quality, hence the use of an underpowered Snapdragon 678. You're better off looking at other phones if you plan on playing games at this level, since this phone is made for the casual user. Anything that goes beyond streaming and casual gaming, you will certainly feel the limitations of this phone. So that's it for this one. Drop a sub or like if you feel supporting the channel, and until the next one, stay safe. Let me quickly thank the sponsor of this video, CDK Offers. CDK Offers specializes in delivering cheap and legitimate software and game codes, so if you ever need a Windows 10 Pro key, you can buy one at a very affordable price. To do so, just visit cdkoffers.com. Search for Windows 10 and choose a suitable copy for you, but in my case, I always go for a professional copy. Before making a payment, make sure to type in the RC20 code for an exclusive 20% off discount. After that, you can choose your preferred payment method. You will receive the code via an email that redirects you to the website of CDK Offers, and from there you can get your Windows 10 key. Since my Windows copy is already activated, I just can simply change my product key to the new one that I just bought. CDK Offers provides permanently valid keys with 30 days of return and exchange period. You can check out more deals in the video description below.